No. So we have just the recap of the workshop? No, so.
Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, May the 18th, 2022, and you're at the City of Opa-locka Charter Review Board. We're going to ask the clerk if he would do the roll call, please.
Board Member Banks.
Here.
Board Member Edmondson.
Here.
Board Member Fenn.
Here.
Board Member Riley.
Present.
Board Member Vega.
Here.
Board Vice Chair Williams.
Here.
Board Chair Russell.
Here. We will stand for the invocation and for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please. Board Member Riley, would you lead us in invocation?
Our Father, our God, I thank you this day that you have made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. I thank you for allowing us the opportunity to serve you at your will and your way in our community. This community, as well as all of us, belongs to you. And that you would guide us in the way that you would have us to go. These blessings and acts in our Son's name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We say welcome to everyone and thank you to all of the board members that are here for giving your time and service to this Charter Review Board and going through this process, to the staff that's always so diligently here, Mr. Chris, that puts together all of the information that we need. We say thank you and we appreciate it. You make our job easier here on the board. As we start our meeting tonight, I would like for us, if you will, to let's give a moment of silence to the lives that were lost in the senseless shooting in New York and also at the church in Pennsylvania. So we could have a moment of silence. Thank you very much, everyone. We're going to move on. Mr. Clerk, are there any additions, changes, deletions to the agenda?
No changes have been communicated to us unless the board would like to make any changes at this time.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Everyone had an opportunity to go over the minutes from the previous meeting. Can I get someone to move the minutes, please?
Move it.
Second.
The minutes have been moved by Board Member Riley and second, I think I heard Board Member Fenn. Are there any corrections that need to be made? If not, roll call, please.
Board Member Fenn.
Yes.
Board Member Riley.
Yes.
Board Vice Chair Williams.
Yes.
Board Member Banks.
Yes.
Board Chair Russell.
Yes,
Minutes have been approved, 5-0.
thank you. We're gonna move to public comments. Mr. Clerk, did anyone call in virtually for comments?
We do have one person registered to speak virtually before the board.
Okay. Public comments are now open.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Dottie Johnson. I can't be there tonight. I'm having some tooth problems. But I reside at 13724 Northwest 22nd Place in Opa-locka. I would prefer, Madam Chair, to wait to your second portion of public input. My position still is a single member district, and the I'm interested in seeing the research that you all may have for the commission salary. So I don't want to waste any additional time. I will prefer, if it please the board, to make my suggestion or recommendation at that time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. And we do have a copy of our previous meeting of the Citizens Input Workshop where we have your recommendations in front of us. And we will allot you the time at our second public hearing to, if you have any comments.
I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we're gonna move on now to the discussion of the recommendations that we have been given on charter amendments.
Madam Chair, we need to close the public input.
Excuse me,
We need to close public input.
we close public comments for this time. Okay, we're gonna move right into the recommendations that we have been going over as far as the charter amendments. Who wants to start?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I want to further re-emphasize the readaptation of the Civil Service Board so that the process, the due process guaranteed by the Constitution could be carried out. Not only in addition to that, we've had quite a number of $100,000 settlements and more with employees since the 2012 adoption of the charter. And I think, the taxpayers could be better use of taxpayers' money. And I would recommend that it would be one of the things considered, recommended to the commission for the charter.
Thank you, Board Member Riley. Does anyone have any input on that recommendation to bring back it's called the employee,
Civil Service Board.
the Civil Service Board? Anyone has any input on that?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to piggyback with that item and make my recommendation for that also.
Okay. Board Member Banks is also recommending the Civil Service Board be reenacted.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes.
So we were presented with information in regards to the fact that the Civil Service Board currently exists, but it simply exists in our city codes versus existing in the city charter. And we were also provided documentation, I believe, last week in regards to how issues are handled at the city level, right? So from an HR perspective, I guess my question for you, if you could help me understand why you would recommend that we build this into the charter versus it living in the code.
You can have a statute, a law, and you can have a constitutional right.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
The charter is the city's constitution.
I understand that.
Okay, so when it's built into the charter, then that gives it, not saying it gives it more power, but more validity, and it is not easily taken away. In other words, 3 members of the city commission could decide, well, I want to change this ordinance. 3 members can't change the charter. It takes a voter to change the charter. And I think once the people understand the significance of it, that's why it is, I think it should be put into the city's charter so that it would be their so that employees and others know that it's there basically on a permanent basis, rather than haphazardly.
I appreciate that. So if I can clarify and you let me know if I've got this wrong. So ultimately it exists, but we want to, what you'd like to see happen is strengthen it by putting it in our charter. I'd be curious to know if you have any thoughts on if perhaps it is not working correctly right now, or is the intention simply that we want to codify this in the strongest way that we can, which is why the recommendation is to put it into the charter versus it living in the codes?
Well, one of the recommendations with it being in the charter is that the membership that was in the charter is not what's in the code presently. And that membership should go back to where it was. That membership, for the record, so we would know, 2 members of the Civil Service Board is appointed by the City Commission. 1 member is recommended by the city manager, the city administration, and is appointed by the City Commission. Then the other 2 members are elected by the employees of the city. So there's equal representation and a balance going across the board. And that way, even the courts have recognized the balance of that board previously.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. By the way, may I add, the previous Civil Service Board, all of the cases, court cases came against it, the board won.
Okay.
And prior to 2010, we had 4 lawsuits in 22 years.
Mhm.
Since 2012,
Mhm.
there's been 17.
Okay.
Of those, I have a question, Board Member Riley, of those 17 lawsuits, how many of them have been won? Or do you have that information?
I know that there has been 4 of them that's been paid out more than $100,000.
Out of the 17, 4 of them have been paid out.
I'm familiar with that.
Okay.
But there's so many of them that are pending.
Madam Chair, if I may, please.
Yes,
Madam Chair, last meeting we had, I brought up something that I'm still hoping that we're gonna get. And that is a part of the policies and procedures, because we did receive information.
you have to talk a little further.
We did receive information regarding the grievance procedure for HR department. If our HR department is weak, and I'm saying this as best as I can, if it's not living up to the standards that are required by the EEOC guidelines or of that nature, then we have to have a backup for our employees. Grievances that are put on a piece of paper is just that, a piece of paper. To have it actually put in the charter gives our employees a sound ground, a ground to stand on, plus legal wise with our risk management, it gives us a backup. And I say that very openly right now, because right now there are some problems going on amongst our employees with civil service right now. Civil Service Board is not even active right now. So if an employee has a problem and the HR department is not up to standards, what does an employee do? What do? They sue. So if we're ever going to cut back on the finances and get our finances in order, then we've got to tie up all these loose ends. What better way to do it is right now than to put it back in the charter? I mean, we have to come up with some way of cutting the finances for the city so that we can progress and move on, and our employees can get raises for those that are warranted good raises for good work. They need to be compensated for it. And there has to be a way for grievance. EEOC guidelines, we have to abide by those rules, otherwise lawsuits come up. They're able to sue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Board Member Banks. I didn't have time to print it all out today, but the clerk, Chris, did send me, I had asked for the legislation when the Civil Service Board was taken and put on the charter and what the results of the election was. And I can't remember, and I don't have didn't bring my computer. I didn't have time. I just got it this afternoon. But I think that we should look at it, and we should look at it with an open mind, as Board Member Banks stated. Our employees are very important to the city. My concern is that if they have something in place that's not working, then it's the same. It seems, Board Member Riley, you said it's not the same as it was when it was the Civil Service Board.
Correct. The membership is different. What happens now, Madam Chairman, is that each commissioner appoints a person. Okay, so that makes it political. Previously, as I stated, the commission appointed two. The manager would recommend one and the commission would appoint it. Then the employees would have an election and they would elect their own representative.
How many did the employees elect?
Two.
Two. Okay.
So you had two from the commission, one from the manager, and two from the employees. That was the five.
So-
And Madam Chairman, the question on the ballot in 2012 was, shall the charter be updated? There was nothing there reference to the Civil Service Board. It said it was one question. It was only one question on the ballot. Shall the charter be updated? And that was among the so-called update. It was eliminated, but that's what happened.
Clerk, do you have that you sent to me this afternoon? Do you have?
So the items that I provided to you were related to the salary increases and benefits for the commission.
And one of them was when this was taken, it went before the voters.
Correct. I can certainly pull up, what information do you need specifically from that vote?
I wanted to know what was well, I know the outcome was to have the Civil Service Board renamed. I think they named it something else in the charter. But I think to Board Member Banks and Board Member Riley, they're stating that it has weakened that board because, correct me if I'm wrong, you all believe that it's more political because the commission have more votes than the employees do. They appoint. They appoint is what you're leading us to believe. Can you hold that for me? Let me ask the attorney. Madam Attorney, do you have in our code of ordinances what that what it says concerning the Civil Service Board? And at our last meeting, I thought it was brought to our attention that they had been appointed, that there was a full board appointment and that they had was ready to meet. Board Member,
Yes, Madam Chair, since the last Charter Review Board meeting, obviously not including last week's workshop, there have been two additional applications from residents to serve on the charter, on the Civil Service Board, and the City Commission at their subsequent meetings have made those two appointments. So at this time, there are 0 vacancies on the board.
Okay, Madam Attorney, you have anything that you could give us any clarification on with that board? What's in the code of ordinance versus
versus, I don't have,
versus what was previously there and what's here now?
I have the code of ordinances, as it currently stands for the Civil Service Board and the current city code. I don't have the previous Civil Service Board ordinance or what it was when it was in the charter.
Okay, while you look, Board Member Riley, you chaired that board for a while, right? So
12 years.
help us understand a little bit when an employee came before the Civil Service Board, if they had a grievance and they came before your board, what did you all do? I know you all supposedly had subpoena powers that you could subpoena records.
The charter at that time specifically stated that the board shall call witnesses.
Okay,
Okay, and the only way you call witnesses is through subpoena.
okay,
It wasn't so much as the employees had the option. They could file a grievance with the union, or they can file an appeal to the Civil Service Board. What the board did was to handle appeals from decisions made by the city administration. All right, it was an appellate review. The other part of it is that the Civil Service Board had the authority to do investigations. One of the biggest ideas that we had is that the board was authorized to do sexual harassment investigations. And the complainant was anonymous, not anonymous, but it was kept confidential. And the investigation was confidential until the board reached the findings. That was at a direct result of the city being sued because we had a former city manager who was convicted of sexually harassing a city employee. In fact, it was sexually assaulted a city employee. Now, and if you really want to understand why it was necessary, I would suggest each member read the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, the United States Circuit Court of Appeals out of Atlanta. Read that case of Angela Griffith versus the city of Opa-locka.
yes, you gave us that at the last
Okay.
meeting. I didn't have time to read it.
And you read it, then you would understand why it is necessary that the tools, all of the tools are there in order to protect the integrity of this government and this governing body.
Can I make a recommendation? Yeah, I'm sorry. No, go
Before
ahead. If
you-
someone
before you
absolutely.
make-
Yeah.
Did you? Okay, all right. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, all. It would be great. So at the last meeting, the clerk did share with us the documents for both the Civil Review Board and the current city code as well as the charter. But I do think, since we're starting to get into a little bit of a deeper conversation about what existed, what didn't exist, how it operated, how it didn't operate, you come with a wealth of knowledge. I do think what would be incredibly helpful is if we can get maybe the city attorney to do an analysis, right? A one-page document to put in front of us so that we truly understand the differences between the two documents. Because I will tell you, I am intrigued by what you're telling me. I do have questions, right? One thing that I am thinking about is, can this continue to exist in the code? But, are there ways that we strengthen it in the code, right? As opposed to putting it in the charter. I look at the power and duties that existed in the board, I'm sorry, in the code versus the charter, I see how it was incredibly weakened. I think it's worth a conversation to understand what are the powers and duties that should still exist versus ones that perhaps don't exist. But I think it would be helpful to perhaps have an analysis from the city attorney that we can use as a basis to have the conversation. So that's just my recommendation.
And in that, I would like to take that a little bit further to tell us how many cases that the city have had over the last, since that, I think that was 2012, that it was taken out of the charter and put in the code. And what are the cases and what, you know, what have been the outcome of them? And my concern is that when, especially when you're dealing with cases of sexual harassment and of that nature, that you start calling, you know, you got people that might not be as qualified to start digging into people's personal lives, and there's no, you know, they don't have an oath as to privacy, you know, people don't have a privacy oath, you know, anybody can discuss it, you know, they're not bound by any oath to say that you don't discuss the case, you know, is it open to the public?
That is, but it is, I just got through telling this, confidential, that's in the code.
Okay, all right.
That's a
Well-
part of the, okay, we have a sexual harassment ordinance,
Uh-huh. Mhm.
okay? That was, but there were, the ordinance was sitting there. And it was meaningless unless it was assigned to someone.
Right.
The reason that it was better in the charter, because what if one of the elected officials was accused of sexual harassment? That was an independent board that can handle that. And if it's chartered, then it's nothing, they can't, okay, 3 members can come up and say, well, we'll kill the law. You can't kill it in the charter.
Yes.
So it was, that was the protection. Plus, Madam Chair, one of the things that I want us to understand, we have what is known in the county. I also served almost 15 years there. The Commission on Human Rights. Okay. The Commission on Human Rights handles complaints. They handle all the complaints from any employee in Miami-Dade County except Miami-Dade County, but all the state. But any city government, any private employee, and et cetera, these are dealing with discrimination, things of that nature. But just employee things, they don't handle that. All right. But there was a reason for it, and the charter took the Civil Service Board out of 2012, but the ordinance was not passed until 2018. That's when the ordinance was passed to bring it back.
So what you're saying is in that period of, in that span of 6 years, there was no protection for the employees.
Right.
Okay, well, we asked the attorney, board member Edmondson, you have anything you would like to add?
Well, Madam Chair, before you move on, I do have the printout of when the Civil Service Board was in the charter.
Ma'am,
as well as-
I can't, you sound muffled.
I have the printout of when the Civil Service Board was originally in the charter, as well as when it was in the code, now in the code. You asked previously about the members and how it was set up. So previously, it's still consisting of 5 members, and they were appointed as follows. 1 member shall be a person nominated by the city manager and appointed by the city commission. 2 members shall be appointed by the city commission, and the remaining 2 members shall be elected by the employees of the city of Opa-locka with classified civil service status. How it currently reads is the board shall consist of 5 members who shall be residents of the city of Opa-locka, 1 chosen by each member of the city commission, who shall serve a term which will coincide with that of the commissioner who selected them. And that's what it is regarding the appointment of the membership.
Okay, I think Board Member Vice Chair Williams was looking for something a little bit more in depth.
Yes.
A little bit more in depth than that, but Board Member Edmondson, can you give us some?
No, I was about to say that I agree with Board Member Riley. If it's placed in the charter, that means it has to be voted in by the residents. It cannot be removed unless it goes back on a ballot for the residents to remove it. If it's a resolution or something else, ordinance, then it can be moved by the commissioners. All you need is the right number of votes. So I agree wholeheartedly with what he's saying.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I add too? One of the lawsuits, I hope the city attorney will apply to, that
Talking
did
about-
happen, was against one of our city commissioners.
Yeah.
Was
Well-
against one of our city commissioners for sexual harassment.
Okay, well, we don't, I don't want to make it, get too personal. Because I've gotten feedback from people on both sides. Some people say that employees were able to go to the Civil Service Board and get away with things because of the people that were on the board, because, and then you have some that say that the Civil Service Board was good did a good job when they had the right people there. So I just want to make sure that whatever decision that we make, that it's not my personal, I don't want to get personal with people. I want us to make the decision as Board Member Riley say, that's best for the city as a whole. Sometime when we're upset with people, sometimes we make decisions based on our feelings at that time, but we want to make sure, because we're representing people, and employees are important in this city, and the way that they're handled with the morale of the employees shows what kind of work they're going to do and what kind of return we as the residents that pay taxes is going to get. So I want to make sure that we flush this out well, and that I've heard both of you up here, and I've also had people that have called me and have been on the other side of the coin about it. And I hear I advise it to the board. So, I think with some information from the attorney's office, as Vice Chair Williams asked, I think we could pull our minds together and come up with a good, and then put it before, it has to go before the commission for them to vote on it, as well as go before the voters. What I think we also need is we need a stronger response from human resources. This response that we got from human resources, I think it can be a little bit stronger. A little bit stronger. So Board
Madam
Member
Chairman.
Banks, I'm gonna hear from you, and then Board Member Riley, and then I'll hear from you, and then Board Member Williams. Go ahead.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I want to state this. When you are an employee of the city, of federal government, the first place you're going when you have any type of problem of that nature, you're going to your HR department.
Yes.
During the tenure and time that Board Riley was talking about, we actually brought in a specialist for sexual harassment cases.
Mhm.
I won't mention how many, being in the HR department at that time, I won't mention how many there were and how many that fell into different categories. But the sexual harassment cases within itself, stood for itself. There were so many of them, it was unreal.
Right.
Not to mention that what was going on in our police department. Our employees in the HR department, that's the first place they're going to go. So we shouldn't have to go back and forth trying to find out whether it's better this way or it's that. though it's good to do our homework.
It's-
But the foundation should be in the HR department, and policies and procedures should be enacted. They should be there for the employees to walk in, get it, be able to talk with somebody there. If they've got grievances going on, HR is the core of this municipality. It is. For our employees, it is where they are going to go. We right now are, and I brought it up in the last meeting, the athlete contract. That's a whole different issue that will be taken to the commissioners. But these things make a difference to employees. During this time right now, we've got employees that are hurting. Employees that haven't had increases in 10 to 15 years, waiting to get an increase. So who do they go to? What guidelines do they have? The only thing they can do is sue
Let me
and
ask you
try to
something.
see if they can take some kind of precautions in their own hands to move into this. The Civil Service Board in the charter would give them a backup. If that department of HR is weak, we've had a turnover of directors back in the past during that tenure that Board Riley's talking about. We brought in a specialist for it because we had so many issues in our HR department. We came up with a policies and procedures that were signed in 2007 by the commission, which should be enacted now until the commission signs a new one.
Mhm.
Employees should be aware of it. They should be brought in, they should be set down, they should sign off on it so that they know the rules and regulations. If you go to a hotel and you order a non-smoking room and they give you a smoking room, you're going to complain.
Yes, yes.
So our employees mean a great deal to us. We have good employees. Again, I'm going to say this, I said it in the past. You have employees that are A, B, C, D, and F. Supervisors and managers should do their job, and that is if you got people that are doing you no good in that department and of no service to us, do what you have to do. But for those that are here who are working consistently, doing a well job for us, above average job, I want to mention also we have guidelines for that. I mean, reviews are done for every employee. When the state came in, no reviews were being done. The state said, you all got to do reviews to your HR department. I'm not bashing HR, but I'm stating that there has to be policies and procedures for everything.
That's true.
And those guidelines have to be followed, and your employees need to know that.
Well, my
So
question,
I asked for it through the grievance. Where's the policies and the procedures? Where is it?
Well,
It should be in there.
my question would be to when it was in the charter and you had the Civil Service Board, did the Civil Service Board handle raises as well? Did they handle
Well,
raises?
Yes, ma'am, they did.
Okay.
Bart Riley is here. He know, I
Okay.
chaired that board. I mean, I clerked that board.
Okay,
So
okay.
I'm very aware.
Well, I understand that we all are very passionate, and I don't think that nobody's taking it lightly, because we all up here at one time or another, if we're not now, have been employees. And we know
Somewhere.
what it is to have employees as well. So, and I'll say it again, I've said it about 3 times, employees are what make your city great. If they're doing a great job and their morale is good, then, but if they're not and the morale is down, you're not going to get the quality of work that you should get. So Board Member Banks, Board Member Riley, we are just as passionate as you all are. We might not see it through the same lens at this time, but we are passionate. And if everything that you're asking is in the code, I would like to know from the attorney, what makes one stronger than the other? I know by having it in the charter is something that can't just be changed without going back before the voters. But if the language that you need is in the code of ordinance, you could sue if it wasn't there. You know, if you have a case, you could sue regardless. So
Madam
we
Chair,
want to make sure that we get clarity. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't know that's what you were looking for, but Board Member Riley has basically covered what the difference is between putting it in the charter and putting it in the ordinances. It's really going to be the language that gives it the bite. If you wouldn't want it additionally, just leave it in the code of ordinances. You can kind of try to beef it up. We would have to go through it, but just beef it up a little bit, but Board Member Riley has basically told you what the difference is between putting it in the charter and putting it in the
Excuse
code of
me,
ordinance.
did
No,
we,
I didn't hear it.
you,
You can't hear
you're
me?
muffled and we don't understand you as well.
I
I'm sorry to
apologize.
ask you to take off your mask. but-
Okay, I apologize. I was saying that Board Member Riley basically covered what the difference is between having it in the charter and within the code of ordinances. There are some differences between what the language in these two different versions are, but he's basically covered what those changes are. It would be more difficult to get it out of the charter. When you put something in the charter, it's basically becoming a foundation of the city. So that's something that's going to travel with the city, and you have to determine whether you think that's something that needs to be basically a staple of the city.
Madam Chairman?
Okay, yes, sir.
Okay. I don't want to beat the dead horse, but I want to,
Don't beat it.
I'm going to, I'm
If he
going,
did, it doesn't matter.
but I have heard these gossip and rumors for years. And most of the people who have had this gossip and rumors and negative things to say reference to the Civil Service Board never attended the meeting.
Uh-huh.
Had no idea what it was doing, okay? But we have to get away from rumors and innuendos.
Most
This is about business.
Yes,
And so I won't beat a dead horse in it, Madam Chair. This time I move that we take the recommendation that the charter, that the Civil Service Board position that was in the city's charter prior to 2012, that same charter and Civil Service Board be brought back and recommended to the City Commission. That's my motion. Ask for a second.
Second.
it's been motioned, it's been moved, and it's been second, discussion.
My apologies. Who seconded it?
Board Member Banks.
Banks. Okay, thank you.
Is there any discussion? Board Member Riley, I am walking the same path that you're walking, but at this time, I cannot vote yes until I have all of the information. And believe me, by the next time that we come together, I'll get it for myself from HR, and I'll get what the clerk, Chris, have given to me, and I'll go over it and make sure that I can make an informed decision for me.
With
So,
all due
at this-
respect, Madam Chairman, the HR that's currently have wouldn't be able to find it if it stood up and was appointed out by the FBI.
So
Well,
I
I think-
can I jump in, please?
Madam
Yeah.
Chair,
Before
one
you
minute. Madam
do-
Chair, also take a good look at where we are in the city right now. Take a good look at our risk management department right
see,
now and
Kim,
our lawsuits right now.
Board Member Finn had her hand up, and I think we're making it too personal for me. And for me, and I understand Board Member Banks, because you were an employee of the city for years, and you've walked those halls and you know that. But then we also have been residents of the city for years and have not been an employee. So can we please,
Madam Chair,
want
with all
to
due respect, Madam
Yes,
Chair, I
ma'am.
requested that information at the last meeting we were. Policies, procedures, things that you could actually see. So you and Vice Chair could actually see these things. If the policy is there and these things are there, it should be transparent, not hidden.
Yes.
Each one of us should have had it right now to look it over and see and determine. Or even if we didn't want to vote on it, at least have an education on it to be able to make a fair decision about it.
Yes.
I'm only trying to stress the fact that if we have a weak department in HR, then we need a backup. We need for our employees to have a backup to go to. It's important because you lose good people that we can keep and help them to grow and help the city to grow.
Yes.
That's how that works.
Okay, Board Member Finn.
If I may, going within this discussion without bias, without top knowledge, but just being a fair citizen listening, oftentimes we go back and we keep, like Madam Chair said, fishing and looking upon what has happened. But we got to look at the road ahead of us. We got to go forward. And if we say the employees are the heart of our city, then yes, we want to move forward with protecting them. And if it's going to mean putting it in a charter, I am all for it. But again, like Madam Chair said, I'm not going to make a decision out of rationale. I'm not going to make a decision out of what has happened and what the he say, she say, they say says. I want to do this with a sound judgment and making it clear with me that I understood everything that took into removing it and then putting it back. Going forward, we have to look at what will happen and could happen, not what has already happened. So I again would employ that we cease this discussion until we get the information that 3 of us are on the board are requesting from our attorney.
Well, we have a motion and it's been second, so we have to vote. We have to either vote it up or vote it down. So if you wanna make a comment, and then I'm gonna call for the vote.
I think Board Member Finn did a great job at kind of expressing exactly how I feel. And so thank you for those comments. And with that, we can go ahead and turn it over so we can vote.
And you had the question, right? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Board Member Riley,
Yes.
Board Vice Chair Williams,
No.
Board Member Banks,
Yes.
Board Member Fenn,
No.
Board Chair Russell.
No.
Motion fails.
And I just want to say to Board Member Banks and Board Member Riley, that doesn't mean that in the future, we won't bring this back. This can't come back again for us to, maybe we'll have a change of heart. So just at this time, that's the way it is, but that doesn't say that it can't come back. So the next item of discussion, somebody wants to bring up the next item of discussion. Board Member Williams, you had for us to look at, you recommended the mayor, commission, management form of government.
I did, and I'm not prepared to talk about that today because there's some research that I really do believe that I need to bring to the board for us to consider and discuss. So I promise that I will be prepared and I will work with the clerk so that we can bring some information to you all. If we want, we can move on to single member districts perhaps.
Okay. All right, anyone have any input on single member districting?
So I am intrigued by this. Is another one that I think is interesting. I debate whether it should be 1 elected 4 districts versus perhaps 2 elected 3 districts. And I think one of the things that I am questioning is trying to understand what information is presented to voters. So what information do we have to have worked out as a board so that the folks who are voting on it, they have sufficient information to vote. So I would love it if someone can kind of explain to me exactly what would go on the ballot. And maybe we're responsible for pulling together that language, which I don't think, but I'd love to understand that. But I would love to discuss as a group today, thoughts on kind of the 1, 4, 2, 3, or even here, if folks, feel strongly that we shouldn't have single member districts.
Well, if I can, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thinking about this really hard, because this was one that I left the last meeting and the previous meeting saying, I don't know. I understood why it was brought up. I think it was a great idea, but having a heart with myself, we're such a small city, 5 miles, if even. I don't think it is totally necessary at this point to have the districting. It divides our voters. We already don't get votes. It's hard to get you out anyway. So we would have 1 person running in 1 district, maybe no one in a district running. it's hard. So I don't think it's necessary. I think right now is not the time to look at doing a districting for such a small city. I think it would be something that those that are running, that really want to run and give something wholesome to our city, they won't get in anyway. I think it's going to pose a problem getting the real workers elected. I think it's going to pose a problem because I have went back and looked, okay, where are these, where are they coming from when they want to run? Where do they live at? Where would they be at? Okay, so one person is going to run, so they're going to win by default. Someone may not run in that district. That I don't see where it would work. We're too small. And that's just what I looked back at and looked at our size. That's my perspective, just by sizing.
Anyone else?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
again, you say it's personal. There's a difference between personal and passion. But the size of the city is, with all due respect, is irrelevant. Representation is what it's about. That the district brings representation. To give you an idea, in Dade County, we had we had 9 members of the county commission for years, since 1956 up until the 90s. And we never could get more than 1 Black on the county commission. So, but what was the county made of? What was the representation of the county? And with the single member district, we was able to get the representation equal on the county commission as to what represented the community. You want to do the same thing in your city. The only restriction is that the person have to live within that district to run in that district, okay? That would be up to the voters whether they want them to reside in that district or not reside in that district. But it would make no sense, but the representation for that area, it is there. Now, the whole concept of a governing body is that members comes together on behalf of the whole. Whether single districts or none. But that was the difference of being with single member district, was representation. And the question comes, and a court will look at it very simple too. Does the current city commission represent the makeup of the city of Opa-locka, the population of the city of Opa-locka? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Williams.
I'm curious, who do you think is not represented? Who, where, like when we talk about representation, I'm with you. Who's not being represented currently?
Well, when I first came to Opa-locka, Opa-locka was 67% white, 35% Black, and about 3% Hispanic. What do you think it is today?
Is this really a pop quiz? I think.
You live here.
Yeah,
so
I
you
think the
look at it.
numbers, so I don't know them exactly, but I think I know we are just over maybe 50–60% Black. And I would say 40–45, somewhere like that, Latino.
Well, we still have some white residents.
No, okay, all right.
We still have some white residents.
1%.
We still have Asians
Okay.
here. But the whole point is not saying that you represent a particular group of people, is that it's a reflection of what your community is.
Mhm.
And the question is, the answer is, the commission does not reflect the community of Opa-locka. And so you will know that, and I'm sure that my learned commissioner from Opa-locka from the county will tell you, that's how lawsuits are won, because it's underrepresented.
Well, my comment is that I think when you talk about representation, I think you need to look at areas that are underrepresented. I don't know how single member districting would work, because, you know, I guess you would have to do some type of revamping of how the election process now in order to bring it out. I think that 3-2 might work better than 4-1, 2 at large, because I think there are areas in Opa-locka that are not represented. You know, that don't get as much attention. I won't say are not represented.
Right.
Don't get a whole lot of attention. But I've had the pleasure of riding and going to Doral. And you know, they're not, I think they're larger than we are. But their board is made up of whoever goes out and vote and who they elect. But in Opa-locka, I think that is areas over on the east side, in the Back Blues area. You know, I don't know when the last time they've had a commissioner that came from that area. So I don't know how it would work. I just don't see. I think we're kind of small, but Board Member Riley say that they got nothing to do with it. So I'm gonna bite on that a little bit. I'm gonna bite on that a little bit. Ain't got nothing to do with it. But you know, and I don't have to see it. But if it makes sense and if the voters want it, then we got to do it. Yeah. But I just don't see how it will work at this time. You know, but I think that when elected officials are elected, they should represent all areas. Now, Board Member Riley, you also said that that's done throughout the county. That they're supposed to represent the whole county. Did I hear you say that?
Correct.
They represent that district.
There's no at-large members on the.
No, there's no, except for the mayor runs at large, but I don't see, I see those signs that say this commissioner, this district, this commissioner, this work is done, and it has all of the county commission, but that big name down there says that commissioner of that area. So they represent their area.
But Madam Chairman, if the commission did not vote for the fundings, it didn't matter how big that name is down there. That it wouldn't be there.
Oh, they all have, yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, okay.
They all have, they all, and the thing of it is politics. So if you're strong in your district, if you want something in your district, then you got to give me something in my district. That's just where it goes. But in overall, the group come together for
the whole. Okay. All right.
That's all right.
Well, that was former Commissioner and Vice Mayor Dottie Johnson. I'm quite sure she's waiting in the wings to give us a little lesson on why she thinks single member district is so important. So we'll,
Well, Madam Chair, if you read the minutes from 1985, August of 1985, you will find that that was discussed then.
you just told me we're not gonna be able to find nothing going back that far.
I said HR. I said HR. I didn't, this would be in the clerk's office.
Board member Banks said she thought you said you weren't gonna beat a dead horse. Okay, let's get on the other spicy subject, mayor and commission compensation. Okay, who wants to be first?
I
Nobody?
mean, I guess I'll go. So I think I've been relatively vocal that I support this. I though stand wholeheartedly in the idea that this needs to be attached to something, right? So I am not in favor of putting a blanket number in there. Like, I don't want to put an $8,000 or $5,000 or whatever that number is. I think whatever we put in there has to be tied to a number that is used more universally. And again, when we had, I forget, League of City Voters come and present to us, she shared with us at least one formula that is used throughout the state of Florida. And so I'd really like to have us explore perhaps using something like that. I know that there was a former commissioner here or mayor who recommended maybe us tying it to the consumer price index, right? So that's another option, but I would definitely say I am in support of this. But I'd really love us to determine how we're determining this number. And again, my recommendation is to tie it to a formula that is more universally used.
Okay, so I think it was former Mayor Kelly that said
Correct.
to tie it into the
Consumer price index.
yes. So anyone did any research on it? When I looked at that League of Cities thing, there were so many formulas in there, my eyes went cross. So,
I got.
Madam Chair, I would like to reiterate on it.
yes, ma'am.
Whatever the board decides to do with this particular item,
Uh-huh.
it has to be tied in somewhere, budget-wise. We don't have anyone here budget-wise to give us any info on it. CPI would be great, but this is the second time we've gone into financial emergency. When the state came in under the financial emergency, the first thing they cut was that. So we need to tie it in. My point is we have to tie it in somewhere. Wherever that budget gives us the permission to take that line item of money or wherever we're gonna do it, because it has to come from somewhere. We just can't say we're gonna give them whatever amount you wanna give them. It has to come from somewhere. Where is it gonna come from the budget? Where are we gonna get this money from? Even if it goes through and the voters approve it, we don't have anyone representing the finance department here tonight to let us know whether, where we could tie it in possibly, where I want to know where that money is going to be coming from. I.e. if we decide to go with other items, two of the board members recommend some other items. If we go with those items, where are we going to get that money from in the budget? From what line item or from where are we going to pull that money every year to make sure that that money is there for our commission and mayor as they come in? That's important because, again, I want to reiterate, this is the second time that we've gone into the financial emergency.
Yes.
We don't want to go into it again and then have them come in and pull this from our commissioners, strip our commissioners and mayor of everything, okay? Because that's what they've done twice. I've been through this twice with the city,
Yes,
both
ma'am.
times in city manager's position.
Yes.
So it's very serious to me to see where the money is going to come from. What can we tie it in from? That's one good example, what previous Commissioner Kelly gave us and there. But I'd like to know before I could even consider, where is it going? Where is it coming from? Where are we going to put it? What are we going to tie it into? And the other items that may be suggested also at that time, where would they come from? What could we do?
Well,
So if I could have that, I could probably make a better conclusion on it. But
Well, I don't think in knowing budgeting, you start every year with a blanket budget. And then what you do is you put in all of your line items. So what is in your budget this year might not be in your budget next year. What was in your budget last year, you know, you might add, your revenue might have gone up, your revenue might have decreased. So it's just like when they when Kendrick Mead did classrooms that, you know, he said that we needed to have 30 students and no more than 30 students in the classroom. Everybody said that, well, we couldn't afford that. But when it passed by the voters, they had to put that in the budget. So Ms. Banks, I think what a board member Banks, what happens is you start with a zero budget at the beginning of the year. And then you put in everything in whatever category. And I think we were given clarification that the state did not come in and take away benefits from the commission because of financial emergency. They took away those things because there was no policy and procedure in place as to how.
That is not correct. I want to see it. I want to see it in writing.
Excuse me.
The policies, they also stated that the commission did not have credit cards. Excuse my expression, but that's not true. There were policies and procedures for everything. Credit cards for commissioners at that time. There was a policies and procedure at
Well,
that time.
let's get some clarification.
Okay. There were policies and
member-
procedures for these things. The state came in and they took it away.
They took
And
it.
also, when you have a budget, you always have a carryover. You start with a blank budget, yes, but you always do, and we do right now. We've got so many lawsuits, it's unreal. Unreal. I'm not going to sit here and be blind to it. I'm going to be very openly about it as professional as I can for this board, but the lawsuits that we have right now, going through our risk management and litigations,
Okay.
they have to be paid. You cannot carry a budget that has these kind of deficits and continue to run the city. You'll never be able to give your employees a raise and increase in anything else.
You know,
I mean, I'm all I want to say in my recommendation is that we know where we're going to tie it into.
okay.
Whatever the board's decision is the board's decision.
Yes,
I can only vote the way I feel.
that's true.
And I
That's true.
respect each one of you on this board.
And we
but-
do the same.
And
for
I'm
you.
passionate about it because I've been there.
Yes.
And I'm on the other side too, because I'm also a resident who's a taxpayer. And I see it
Me
as a
too.
waste. Okay?
I think we all.
And I think it's time for us, for all of us to stand up and start fighting to make it a better community, because you know why? We have children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren that we want to be a part of this community. So we want to make it conducive for them living here in a good
Yes.
environment here. We want businesses to come in here.
Yes.
We want our city to have a good rating, not a bad rating, to have people want to come in, and we want to represent the demographics in this community, which is whatever it is, Haitian, Hispanic, Blacks, whatever it is, because right now we're not even doing that either, okay? We don't reflect it in the city of Opa-locka, we don't. If you look at the census and see where we are, we do not reflect what the demographics are in this community, we don't. So that my recommendation is that as long as we can, you all can tell me where you're gonna tie it in, where we're gonna take this money from the budget, this blank budget that everybody seems to want to think it's a blank budget. It's not. If it's a blank budget, we wouldn't be in financial emergency, okay? We wouldn't. So
Ms.
that's all,
Banks,
that's all I gotta say for it.
Okay.
Somebody needs to tell me
We're
where the
gonna-
money's gonna.
we're gonna
where
try
it's
to
gonna
get
come
some
from, okay?
clarity. I think,
Madam Chairman, thank you.
Before you go, Board Member Riley, Clerk Chris, would you give us the documentation? I think you read it to us before as to why the things were removed from the commission. And then I think the attorney wanted to give some input, please.
So the
Yeah.
documentation that was provided to the board was specifically related to the cancellation of the commission's healthcare. And the reason for that was specifically because there was nothing, no policy. It's possible that both the chair and the board member are correct, that the state at the end of the day has us in financial emergency because of certain financial circumstances the city was in. And as a result of their review of the city's policies, they took away many of these benefits that the commission had, and made that decision for the city at this time. It is the purview, or it is the ability of this board to change that and put it officially into policy, and make the recommendation, at least to the commission, to have that on the ballot this coming election, for the voters to make that decision.
Madam Attorney.
Yes, it wasn't really necessarily related to that. I just wanted to say that I appreciate the board members' passion and that they want to protect the city and its employees and its residents. I would just ask for, when we were talking about lawsuits, because at this time it's speculation, so I don't want to cause any more problems or issues in
I'm
that
sorry,
area. So-
I can't, I'm sorry, I can't.
Sorry. I was saying I appreciate the passion and the of the board members wanting to protect the city and its residents and its employees. When I'm asking to, kind of cut back with the speculation regarding the lawsuits, because it could cause more harm than good. And I don't know if there's firsthand knowledge about what is going on in those lawsuits. So the speculation it doesn't help.
Madam Chair, I just want to add one more thing, something that the board may want to consider. As it seems one of the questions is whether or not, or where the funding would come from. Perhaps inquiring from Mr. Bob Anathan, our budget director, might be able to provide some insight onto how that budget process will look for the coming year. And that might also help the voters have a little bit more confidence in voting in favor of any such question that may be put on the ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Will, and also the attorney, Ms. Banks, did you heard the attorney?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Attorney. We want to make sure that we don't give out the wrong, send the wrong air out to the community. So that's why she was giving clarification on lawsuits that, because I'm not privy to that information, and most of the lawsuits in the city is done in a closed session. So, I don't know. I don't have that information because they're done in closed session and it's not to be discussed among people, everybody, for that reason.
Madam Chair, we're not discussing the lawsuits. We're mentioning, in order for us to make an evaluation on or a recommendation to the commission on this particular item,
Yes, ma'am.
that is a factor that involves it. We did not
Yes.
divulge any information about anything other than that. And any city resident that wants to know about litigation can request that information publicly, okay? Any of them that want to do that. All they have to do is go to the city clerk and request public information on it if they want it, okay? Certain information is private. I understand the factor of that, but in order to base our recommendation on this, it was necessary to bring that out.
Okay.
I want that clarified. okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I see the attorney is trying to get my attention down there again.
I was just clarifying, it's not about you talking about lawsuits, and I don't really want to go back and forth. It's just about speculating how many there are and what the substance of those lawsuits are.
Okay. Okay, all righty. So we're going to look at a formula.
Yes, and in fact, I pulled out the presentation, so I'd like to ask that we have the clerk's office run the formula, and so it seems like it's a Florida compensation salary. It's on page 99 of this document. I'm happy to give you mine, and so if you can run the numbers, so we have them next meeting and we can look at them, that'd be great. I'll bring this over to you.
Yeah,
once
if
we
you can
finish.
provide any clarification on what number specific, because I would imagine.
It is done by the, it's a formula and it's done by population and it walks you through
Understood.
exactly how to do it.
Understood.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm also in favor of the commission having access to a vehicle, whether it's the city's vehicle that they sign. I think a board member Finn, correct me if I'm wrong, stated that that they would sign in and out to use that vehicle at this time. And also, I'm in favor of health benefits for the commission. And I'm not in favor of all that being tied into the salary. I think the salary should be one thing and the health benefits, whether it's they be an employee of the city. When I spoke to, I think I spoke to the city clerk's office about can commissioners be employees of the city because they are classified as part-time employees, and part-time employees don't always get benefits. So that's why she was saying that maybe it would be something that you have to put into play and you have to spell it out that yes, they get health insurance. I think they should have access to health insurance. I think that whatever formula we come up for with the salary according to our population, I'm in favor of that, and I'm in favor of the car, having access to a car, whether it's the city vehicle that they check in and check out to do city business.
I'd like to maybe recommend that we just, instead of there being an actual vehicle that they check in and out, that we do a car stipend. And so they are compensated, who knows, we can figure out what that number is, but there is a stipend that they get for the use of their own car.
Yes, Madam.
How
Clerk, that
about,
was
how
me
about
as
an
well.
allowance? You get a certain amount of money every month.
Yeah.
For the phone, for the health insurance. How about if they got a full-time job somewhere else and they do this part-time and they have insurance and their other job?
Yeah.
Give them an allowance, whatever number we come up with, and that's what they should get every month. And that should cover for the phone, for the miles in their car. And I think it's simpler that way.
Yes, yeah, I like that. I like that idea. I think I like that.
Madam Chair.
Board Member Finn. And then
Did you need to
I'll
go?
come to you.
Okay, so I just wanted to make the correction. I was in favor of a car stipend, not
Okay.
them actually checking in and out.
Okay.
And I do agree that I think it should be separate of a salary, just have those points there. But I do think that if like he's saying, if they have a full-time job, they will probably not need that insurance.
Sure.
So they can have a calls and opt-out calls where they can take. My position stands on that the same, that I like the formula idea. I've been looking at this book and it's a lot for me. But I like the formula because then it fluctuates based on how our city is populating. That's a great one. However, with the allowance, I don't really tend to that one because times change. One bill is one bill 1 week and 1 month versus another. So we wouldn't know if the cell phone bills would stay the same, would they fluctuate depending on the companies? We don't know. I just think that the cell phone should be given to them because they take an enormous amount of calls. They deal with business day, noon, night. I think a car shouldn't be, because then again, we have to keep the upkeep of the car.
And
We
then
have to
how
do
about
a
if
lot
one,
more with having that car
how about if one commissioner needs to use it now and the other one needs to use it?
at the same
Everybody's
time.
got a car. If you get an allowance, you make it simple.
Yeah.
Get an allowance, a certain amount of money every month, and that includes the phone and the car. Whatever amount of money will come up, a certain amount of money, I think that would work.
And I think they should have a city phone aside from their personal phone anyway, because there are times when they have to, if the ethics commission or somebody wants to see have they been talking to, things have been going on, they get their phone, and you don't want your personal
It's a phone.
phone tied in with the city phone. That's why I think the city phone should be separate, and it should be owned by the city.
By the city.
That,
Not
so
correct.
that if they say that, you gotta give your phone for whatever reason, then you have to give your phone, your personal phone. I think that's your, you know,
City property, the phone.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I
Madam
think if,
Chair, aren't our commissioners right now, all of
They
them,
have the
including our
two
mayor,
separate
have
ones.
city cell phones?
yes,
Don't
they
they?
do. They have
Okay.
city cell phones now. I think they do.
I believe
they do, they do.
Madam Chair, that was my point of clarification. So
Yes,
just so that you all are clear, every member of the commission, including the mayor, they all are provided a cell phone. And they do have tablets that are provided by our IT department or some kind of laptop situation for them. That does not preclude you from including this in the charter, right? So if you all wanted to make a recommendation to the commission to codify that benefit into the charter, this board has the opportunity to make that recommendation.
Madam Chairman.
before you go, Board Member Riley. So, Mr. Wills, help me understand. So they could not, the commission can be an employee, considered an employee with, can they be considered an employee with benefits?
So as the clerk, as Clerk Flores informed you, currently they are viewed as basically part-time employees, and because part-time employees in the city don't necessarily receive benefits, that may not be the best solution to the challenge that is before them as far as whether or not they're going to have benefits. The reason that I shared that with you and some other members of the board a couple weeks back is that when we were doing research into other municipalities
Yes.
and the salaries and benefits that are afforded to their elected officials, some of the other clerks and human resources folks that I spoke to in those other municipalities, because I made those calls personally, some of them were a little puzzled as to why we were facing this conundrum, because they view their elected officials as employees and simply grant them all of the benefits that their city employees would receive. I did not get into the, splitting hairs with them about whether their elected officials are viewed as full-time or part-time employees, but that was the response that I received from several cities, including the city of Miami, as one example.
Good information. So they just view them as employees, rather, they don't say full-time or part-time. Because most of the time our commissioners, they might have jobs, but they're called upon meeting 10 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the afternoon, 12 o'clock here, so I don't know what, that, I guess that's an HR question as to why they're viewed as part-time employees, but that's something we can get into later. I see you, Chair, I meant, Board Member
Well,
Riley.
from time that I was elected in 82, 83,
That was
I was a
ancient.
city employee.
You was a city employee.
Yeah.
You was
and-
considered a city employee?
Right, in the 90s, I was a city employee, and in 2016, I was a city employee. I can even show you my retirement pay that I get as city employee. Anyway.
As a
Madam
city
Chair,
of Opa-locka employee?
that's correct. Madam Chair, no government starts off with a zero budget. Can't.
I didn't mean it.
I just want,
yeah,
for the
I'm
record.
saying, I don't mean it that
There-
they don't
there's no
have, that they
clean-
have a zero budget.
Right.
I
there.
mean that they come together and put together a budget. It's
Okay.
not like you can't add or take away.
Madam
'cause
Chair,
you're,
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
we have a proposed budget each year,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we have an actual budget. Okay?
Yes, sir.
The actual budget is let us know what revenue came in,
Mhm.
what actually came in, what was proposed to come in, okay? And that's what we deal, that's how we deal with the budget. There are several revenues that comes into the budget.
Yes, sir.
I won't bore you with all different revenues that comes in,
Just
for a
looked at one
government budget.
yesterday for the CRA.
okay? But there are different proposals. Now, so government has that. When you look at a scale, you start looking at scales, what you keep in mind, the founder of Opa-locka also founded Miami Springs and also founded the city of Hialeah,
Yes.
okay? Miami Springs have the same population of Opa-locka. But look at his budget. His budget is 10 times what Opa-locka is. Why? Because his tax revenue is 10 times what Opa-locka is. His property value, his tax revenue is 10 times what Opa-locka
Property
is.
value is
His
higher.
property value is higher than what Opa-locka is. So when all of that works into the formula, we say population, okay, yeah, but
The formula.
right, we got a city that sits right on the north, off of Biscayne. Their whole city is walled in. Okay, they got a budget of $1 billion. City just 2 square miles. Okay, we 4 square miles, 4.5 square miles, but one mile we have no jurisdiction over. That's the whole lot dealing with. All I'm saying to you, each municipality is unique within itself.
Yes.
Opa-locka is unique within itself. It is different than others. So that's why you have a municipality, because of the uniqueness thereof, and be able to self-govern. All right. So you want to do on what's behalf of what's in the best interest of the city, period.
Yes.
You know, that's why we talked about what we talk about, you talk about what you talk. You say, I'm compassionate about this, compassionate about that.
Yes.
But she asking you where would the funding come from? The proposal first came out to us, it was controlled by the budget. Controlled by the budget, and it shall not exceed a certain number.
Yes.
That was the reason it was put there.
Yeah.
Because you can have various formulas, you can have various things, but what applies to Zion City does not apply to Opa-locka. A person that have a $6 million surplus in their budget compared to those who have none, that's a whole different element.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Riley. And I would imagine that that's one of the reasons why it was recommended to us by our former mayor and also Kelly and Dottie Johnson not to have, not to change the way we do financial changes by ordinance or by resolution. And that was, I think that's one of the reasons why. So wealth of information, I'm full, everybody's full, got enough. We got to do our homework.
Yes.
Homework.
I
Everybody.
think we should bring back the financial guide back again.
Yes, I was
Okay,
gonna say the
yes.
exact same thing. I agree 100%.
Chris, can you please take care of that for
There,
us?
there's a lot of construction and there's a lot of development in the city.
Yes,
And all you gotta do is get in your car and drive around industrial.
yes,
And that generates
that generates money.
impact fees,
Mhm.
permits, real estate taxes. So let's bring the
And
guy
we-
back
yeah.
and see where we can, what line item we can tap into and see what we can afford to give the commissioners.
Yes, because I think they also do a projected, I think Board Member Riley said, they do a projection, a 5-year projection, so they know that there's gonna be an increase in revenue or increase in construction and, things like that. And then Also, the city have outstanding debt that they collect on that, they had not been collected on. So those are some things that we definitely would keep in mind. And we're going to do our homework. So we'll make it a lot easier on ourselves, Board Member Finn, and then we're going to.
I agree, we need to do our homework, but we were given this book and I think this is very vital.
Yes.
And some of the questions that we're asking and we want to compare to, the answers are right here. I was looking as Board Member Riley was calling out some of the cities' names that was there, and I was going by and I was looking at a few of them. And although they have like these huge budgetings, their salaries are not that huge either. So I think if we look at this, because you mentioned Miami Springs, and I'm looking at it, we're right there with them with the same thing, with mayor salary, commission expenses on one item, they don't even get an allowance. So we really need to do our comparison analysis right here.
Yes.
It's very vital. They gave it to us. I urge us that we go into this before the next meeting.
And sometimes they don't give them salaries, but they give them other perks. I know at one time, the city of Opa-locka had a deferment, what they call it, a deferment plan for elected officials.
That was illegal.
Well, I
Yes.
see in 2012, it was
was,
something for
but
that, but
they were
it was
getting it.
denied.
It was not correct, but they were getting it.
Yeah.
So there are other avenues that we can look at as well. But let's just do our homework. And I think that you love that word sue.
Madam Chair, if I may, one other thing before we.
Yes,
move on to this.
ma'am, you sure
Also,
can.
I would like to just bring it to the board's attention.
Wait a minute. She's talking right
Just
now.
give me 1 minute, John. I would like to just bring it to our attention that when we do decide on the figures or whatever figure the board comes up with, that we also consider and take in consideration that once we do decide on other benefits, that amount of money also makes a difference. So we may want to think about how much we want to put in as a recommendation, because when you decide on health insurance and the stipend, all those things add up to the figure, the same as a salary for an employee, okay? It's the same thing. I just want to bring that to the attention of the board, okay?
Mhm.
I mean, just.
Okay, thank you, board member. But before we leave, we have to give our final public comments. We know that, I think Ms. Johnson is still on. Public comments are now open.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh, yes, I'm still here.
thank you.
You're very welcome. I would like to go back to the language that was on the 2012. Now, we had legal sufficient at that time. I think the attorney was Joe Geller. And I do know the language was limited. So we couldn't put a lot of detail there. So absolutely what was discussed is true. However, the single district members I heard, and I've been in and out, so you may have cleared this up. It doesn't matter how small the city is. It's the representation of the area seat-wise where you're going to get the best dialogue going along, which comes together to make one team, the city. So I beg the difference when you say the city is too small. I know of smaller cities that have seats, they call them seats, some of them call them district. And I think y'all need to revisit that. I know it came up earlier. I don't know the year, so I'm not going to throw no year out there, but I know it came up before. And if it doesn't go this way, there is a process where the citizen can do a petition for 10% of how many people voted before, and we can get it on the ballot. Hopefully, we will not have to go that route. As far as the salary, I don't think a big jump. The citizens will, the ones that I've talked to, and I talked to a lot of citizens. I'm in a lot of the coalitions meeting, on a lot of the Zoom meetings with residents. They're not going, I don't think, in my opinion, a large salary increase will be approved by the citizens. First of all, we got to build the trust of the citizens. So we got to make it whatever formula you all come up with, fine. But the language is, in my opinion, what I've dealt with in 2012, the language doesn't come from the charter board. It comes as drafted by the attorney's office. So don't get bogged down in things that really may not be of a need for you at this point. I'm truly in support, and I worked for one of the largest employers in the nation, the United States Postal Service, and we had carpools, and it worked out pretty good. Where anyone that needed a car, you had a certain amount of cars, you reserved the cars, and they were there available for you to utilize. I think the perps with the health insurance, life insurance, or whatever you all decide to recommend, it should be limited to the commission and not the family. I have had an opportunity being a public servant to serve on the city of Opa-locka doing the 2002 finance. I wasn't there for this last one, but I did recommend that they do go to the governor's office and try to straighten it out, which happened. So it's how you monitor your spending. And I think we came out under the leadership of Mayor Joe Kelly. We came out at 2 years in advance, 2 years early. So be very, don't get bogged down with the numbers, because even with the single member district, that's not going to go into effect until 2024. Yes, they're going to get approved, but you got time to work all of that out. And I think I may have mentioned that. I've heard a lot of dialogue about lawsuits, and I really want to caution the committee, the members, to that's an area that you really don't want to go get bogged down in, because if they're outstanding lawsuit and you put a lot of language on the board, you're going to make it hard for either litigation or the law firm or the law office to really get into it. So be very cautious, as I've heard a lot about lawsuits tonight that I've never heard before. I'll hold the rest of my comments for your next meeting on the questions for the ballot, but I thought this was some things that I really need you to bring out, especially about the civil service board. I got some thought, and after hearing some of your members, I will put this on record. The climate that we're in now from 2012 to now is much different. A lot of employees that I've talked to and know people that are employees, they feel retaliation. We put the whistleblower act in, but is it being reinforced? So I'm almost in the opinion to say the membership can change in the ordinance, but if there isn't a comfortable position where employees know the knowledge, sign off on it, have the awareness of it, we may have to take another safety net to make sure that the employees' rights are not violated. Depending on matter what commission is there. The League of City gave y'all a lot of resources, and they're great resources for whatever you may need. And I know Lynn, she really went in her presentation really deep. So utilize and capitalize on the resources that you have. I think the robust conversation that I've heard, it was very interesting tonight. You spend a lot of moments on one subject, but the parliamentarianship needs to be really, really enforced in order for others on the other side that may listen to get a better understanding of your meeting. Thank you so much for your volunteerism. Thank you for your conversation and your dialogue, and especially your open-minded, because it is our community. It is our solution. And it is our future. Have a blessed evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson, for your comments, and thank you for diligently always coming and give us another point of view and something else to look at as well. So we appreciate you taking your time out. Is there anything else from the board? When is our next meeting, Mr. Wills?
So the board has determined that you will meet on the first and third Thursday of the month. The next regularly scheduled meeting would technically be on Thursday, June the 2nd. And after that, that would be Thursday, June the 16th. So if you all would like us to move forward with getting those two dates scheduled, please do let us know. Of course, keep in mind the deadlines that you all have before you in order to appear on the ballot. As the clerk noted for you all, the August primary election, the deadline just is not really
Yes, we're
feasible at this
shooting
point.
for the general election.
And then you have until the end of July in order to actually get the general election, the November general election ballot to the supervisor of elections office. And the clerk has noted that it's important to keep in mind that the city commission may want to workshop whatever recommendations you
Yes,
bring before them before they actually vote on it. So you may want to keep that in mind as you all set up your final timelines for them to be able to have the final language approved by the city attorney as well to the supervisor of elections office by the end of July.
okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. That being said, our next meeting then will be scheduled for June 2nd. June the 2nd. Board Member Finn had something you wanted to
No, I just
add?
wanted to make sure that we're very clear that that precise date that was noted on our form here was July 29th. So we know that it has to be there by July 29th.
Yes.
We need to give our commission at least, I would say, 1 or 2 meetings to
Yes.
discuss.
Because he said
This
that
is
they may
urgent.
want, I'm quite sure they're gonna want to workshop it as well
Yeah.
as reduce.
I would ask if we can, at the next couple of meetings, so the meetings in June, we be prepared to vote on the recommendations in front of us and send that up to the city commission so that they have the entire month of July. So again, that's workshopping and then their own voting on it in order to meet the deadline.
And also if we could have another meeting combined with this board and the commission so that if they have any questions of us, we're able to answer those as well.
We would just need to know what date you all wanted to do that.
Okay, all right. Nothing else? Can we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. Thank you all. Everybody have a great evening and be safe.